We invite your attention to the book of Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes chapter 7. Ecclesiastes chapter 7. While you're turning there, in the first verse of our text this morning, Solomon is the author, the human author of this book of Ecclesiastes, and he refers to his life as the days of my vanity. That's how he refers to it, the days of my vanity. Another team of translators worded it like this. They said, this meaningless life of mine. You ever felt that way? Have you ever felt as if I'm not really sure what I'm here for? I'm not really sure what the value of this day is. Have you ever wondered, is there something that you are meant to do, some grand purpose for your life, something larger than going to work from Monday morning till Friday evening and trying to squeeze something of value into the 2 days of the weekend? Is there something more than just the routine of life that we so readily seem to fall into? And then there's this. Solomon refers to his life not just as meaningless, as if it's kind of empty and he's not really sure what the purpose of it is. And by the way, this is the man that we refer to as the wise man of the Old Testament. Remember, this is the guy that when he became king, he had this vision. And his vision, God had responded to his prayer and said, "I've heard," and so what he asked for, and Solomon says, I just want wisdom. I just want to know how to be a king. I want to know how to lead people and guide people. And God gave him what he didn't ask for and what he did ask for, gave him that wisdom. So we refer to him as the wise man. And yet the wise man said, I sometimes feel like life is empty. I sometimes wonder what the value is. I sometimes find myself struggling with, well, what am I here for? What is the purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? Surely it's something more than what I am doing. Surely it's something more than just the routine of getting up and punching the clock. Or do they even punch clocks anymore? You know, so somehow starting and ending and then trying to squeeze a year's worth of fun into 2 weeks of vacation. Have you ever noticed that sometimes you come home from your vacation and you're more tired than when you went on your vacation? And we get so caught up in living this life that just as folks in front of us has lived, didn't we? And somewhere along the way, maybe we're like Solomon. We stop and say, "Oh, what am I doing? What is the point of all this? What is the real purpose of my existence here on planet Earth?" And then notice that he used that word days. He didn't talk about the years of his life or the decades of his life or even the seasons of his life. He referred to it as just days. Life's just flying by like days. I was thinking about that this weekend. We went to the Little League Park, Pinecrest, to watch Ruby play t-ball. And we had a blast, okay? And I was sitting there and I was thinking, you know, I'm not from here. I mean, I've lived here longer than I've lived anywhere else, but I didn't grow up here. This isn't where I'm from. And the first time I ever went to Pinecrest Little League Park, I went to watch two young guys play baseball. Some of you will remember the names, Chad Hamilton, Ryan Swilly. And then the next time I could remember being at the baseball park, we'd gone to watch somebody else play t-ball, Michael Davis. And then we watched our own son, Jacob, play t-ball, Little League. And now we're watching Ruby. I thought, man, Solomon, you're right. It just feels like days. It's just flying by. Doesn't feel like years. Doesn't feel like decades. Doesn't feel like a lifetime. It just feels like days. Feels like it was just yesterday and we were in a totally different season of life. And Solomon is way ahead of his time when he says, sometimes it feels like life is just flying by, and I wonder what am I here for? It's passing by. I'm moving from one stage to the next, and what's the value? What am I getting out of it? I mean, is it whether it's vanity as the older translations use, or it's just an empty, meaningless life as some of the newer translations? That's what he's saying. And sometimes that's how we feel. Sometimes that's how, if we're just honest, we feel that way sometimes. Life is flying by. It's fleeting. It's passing through our fingers. It's just racing by. And as it's racing by, and we're so busy doing things and living life and just doing the necessities from day to day, that occasionally there's a time where we stop, pause, take a deep breath, look around, and say, "What am I doing?" I mean, just where I grew up. I grew up spending summers in a tobacco field. That's I was 10 years old whenever they put me on a tractor in a tobacco field, and I'm gonna tell you something. I was glad to be there. I really was. You have to understand, we were a long way from town. We did not have color TV. I did not know Lucille Ball's hair was red until I was in my 20s. We had a black and white television that got 3 stations if the wind was blowing right. The summers were long, and whenever they asked me, whenever Ricky Smith asked me, Charlie, would you like to go to work tomorrow with us and drive a tractor for me in a tobacco field with your brother? And I thought, my goodness, yes. You mean you're going to give me a whole $10 to spend a day driving a tractor? $10 a day to drive a tractor in a tobacco field. I graduated, moved on from driving a tractor to walking through the field, and sometimes have any of y'all ever cropped tobacco? You ain't got a clue what I'm talking about. Sometimes when you're crouched over and you're cropping tobacco, you're taking the first couple of leaves and you're working your way down the rows. Sometimes it's easy to lose everybody else that's out in the field with you. And sometimes you stop and you straighten your back and you try to look and say, well, where am I? Where am I in relation to everybody else? Where am I in the field? How far am I from where I started? And how close am I to the end of this row where there's some water? I can turn around and work my way back. And sometimes in life you have those moments where you just got to stop. And you kind of straighten your back and you kind of look at where am I at? Where am I at compared to other people in the field? Where am I at between the beginning and the ending? Is where am I? And sometimes we're like Solomon. We stop and we look around and say, man, that went fast. And I'm not sure what I got out of it. It went fast, and I'm still not sure what I'm supposed to be doing. I just flew by, and I'm not sure what I'm here for. And it really shouldn't surprise us that the wise man had that experience. He was wise enough to know, say, wait a minute, I'm spinning my wheels in life. Life is flying by. It feels like it's just days, and I'm still not sure what I'm here for. Sometimes you've been there, perhaps. I've been there. Maybe you have. And Solomon shares a few realities to help us grapple with the issue. What am I here for? If nothing else, he takes some things off the table. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm grappling with an issue, I just have to start taking things that I know aren't the answer off the table. Just have to take them off, lay them off to the side. I know it's not this, put it over here. By the process of elimination, just narrow the focus to what it's about. Solomon helps us do that, and I want you to notice what he does. First of all, he shares with us that, yes, life can be senseless. At least it can feel that way. Look what he says in verse 15. Are you there? Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 15. Listen to what he says. All things have I seen in the days of my vanity. That's what other translators talk about, the empty, meaningless days of my life. And here's what he says. This is the days of my vanity. And here's what I've seen. There's a just man that perisheth in his righteousness. There's a wicked man that prolongeth his life in his wickedness. And we may word it differently, but we might say something like this. We've seen good people have bad lives. And we've seen bad people have good lives. We've seen good people that just seem to never be able to get ahead. I mean, it's not that they're not good. It's not that they aren't loving, that they're not kind, that they're not honest, that they're not ethical, that they're not moral. Just fine, upstanding folks. And it seems like every time there's just something else knocks them down. That's something. And then we see other folks. They don't seem to have any values at all. They don't appear to have any morals. They just live life by their own guidelines, and who knows what that is. It seems to be all about them. And it seems as if they're getting ahead. And maybe you can identify that. The truth is that life does not always make sense to us. It doesn't always fall in the nice, neat category. Sometimes bad things happen to good people. And sometimes people who have done evil things seem to get ahead. And maybe they really do in this life. I mean, we've observed good people that die in the prime of life. I mean, they had so much to live for and so much good in them. And suddenly they're just gone. They're just not here anymore. You get the phone call and somebody says, did you hear about so-and-so? Or these days you get a text and somebody says, hey, just want to make sure you knew so-and-so's gone. And you say, my goodness. I mean, just what happened? How could it be? How could they just be gone so soon? And then there's some other folks that maybe you have encountered along the way, and you would not call them good. You might call them mean. You might call them evil. You might call them things that you shouldn't call them. And it just seems as if they just can't stop living. Is Solomon alone here? And sometimes Maybe we're like Solomon. We want to say, man, what is the value of being good if people who are bad get ahead? What's the value of just trying to do what's right if you feel like you're punished for it instead of rewarded for it? Or maybe if there's no value in being good, then is there any curse in being bad? And or does it even matter? Does it even matter what I do in life or how I live? Should I seek purity or should I embrace something else? These questions are provoked by Solomon's words. When he says, here's what I've seen in my life, saying it's just days flying by and it feels very empty, and I've seen good people getting the short end of the stick, and I've seen bad people seem to get the best. He said, that's what I've seen, and it just doesn't make sense. Sometimes life seems senseless. Sometimes it feels that way. There are some times when we struggle to say, well, what am I here for? What is life really all about? I mean, I've observed these things that just don't seem right. Why should I sacrifice to do good? And why shouldn't I just do whatever it takes to get whatever I want, even if it's evil? And understand, those are questions that are provoked by what Solomon says. And one of the first things he wants, he writes this, that's where he starts. He starts right there. Understand, sometimes life seems senseless. Sometimes, understood. Sometimes it seems as if the bad get ahead and the good get punished. Sometimes it seems that way. But whatever you do, don't you live life that way. Don't you do it. In fact, not only does he talk about life being senseless or feeling that way, but he talks about what one of the answers is not. It's not to live selfishly. It's not to make it all about us. In fact, we shares with us, we don't find the answers to life's questions in ourselves, that we're not the answer. Verse 16, verse 17 says this. I want you to notice as we read this, the word over, if you will. Be not righteous over much. Neither make thyself over wise. Why shouldest thou destroy thyself? Be not over much wicked. Neither be thou foolish. Why shouldest thou die before thy time? You probably know, you notice there's three overs. It says, don't be over righteous. Don't be over wise. Don't be over wicked. Don't know. And he's not just talking about extremes. He's reminding us that the answer to the questions we're asking don't live in us. First of all, it doesn't live in our self-righteousness. And that's the way he's using the term. In our self-righteousness and thinking, we've achieved, we've attained, we've arrived, we've attained some level of righteousness, some purity, we've improved ourselves, we kind of feel good about who we are, that flavor of self-righteousness that often lives in religious circles. And if you think we're stretching it, I just want to remind you, later on in this chapter, Solomon's going to write these words, there's not a just man upon earth that doeth good and sinneth not. He wants us to understand that the key is not into trying to make yourself a perfect person, because you will fail in the process. It's not in ignoring God. It's not in ignoring His commands. But at the same time, it's not in your self-righteousness, because your self-righteousness isn't good enough. And that's what the Bible teaches us. There's none righteous, no, not one. Solomon says there's not a just man upon the earth that does good without sin. And the Old Testament prophet reminded us that our righteousness is but filthy rags in the eyes of God. Solomon says the key is not in you being a self-righteous, holier than thou religious person. That's not the key. Have you ever met some of those folks? And I hope you're not looking at me like I'm one. I hope not. My first encounter with someone that just seemed to be a little bit over righteous was when I was in Bible college. And there were a couple of brothers that showed up from another state, about the second or third year. And my roommate in college was another preacher's kid. They should have never let preacher's kids be roommates. Shouldn't have. We were disastrous. And my roommate had a nickname for everybody that showed up on campus. A nickname that you couldn't use to their face, okay? Sometimes derogatory. And whenever these two brothers showed up about a week, as they were there in classes at campus, he looked at me and said, have you seen the righteous brothers today? They were just real proud of how righteous they were. They were real proud that they just weren't sinners like us. And in fact, it seemed to me as if in the idea of self-righteousness, that self-righteousness is as much as not so much that I've really obtained, but I'm just better than you. I don't do what you do. I don't do the things that you do. I don't sin like you sin. At least that's the way it's me, the flavor of self-righteousness. And Solomon says, listen, the answer is not in you being self-righteous. It's not in you thinking that you're better than everybody else. It's not you straightening up your back in the back of field and say, where am I in relation to everybody else? Oh, I'm so far ahead. I'm really way down to the field compared to where they are. When it comes down to religion, I've just knocked the ball out of the park. God has to be happy with me. I mean, because after all, I am really a righteous, godly person. And Solomon, the wise man, says, no, that's not where the answer is. Because lest you forget, there's not a man in this world that does good and doesn't sin. Doesn't exist. No matter how righteous we may think we are, we're not nearly as righteous as we think we are. We're still sinners in the eyes of God. And then he goes on, not just speak about self-righteousness, but he speaks about our wisdom. He says, don't be overwise. We might say self-confident. I mean, some of you won't remember. It betrays my age. When I was a teenager, there was this show on television called Happy Days. Anybody remember Happy Days? Do you remember the star of Happy Days? Anybody remember who the star was? What was his name? Fonzie. Fonzarelli. Does anybody remember what Fonzie just couldn't say? I would in the script, he never could bring himself to say, I was wrong. Couldn't. One of the best things I ever learned to say in my adult life was those three words. I was wrong. I wasn't right. My answer wasn't the right answer. I was wrong. I was wrong in what I said. I was wrong in what I was wrong. To just acknowledge I was wrong. Solomon says, don't imagine that the answer is thinking you're just smarter than everybody else. That you've got the answers that other folks don't have. That somehow you've attained some level that other folks haven't attained. That you're just there. I mean, you've got this. And the truth is, nobody has all that. It's the wise man that's writing the word saying, I don't have the answers. Life's just flying by. It feels like days, not years, not days. It's just days that it's flying by. And I still am not real sure. What am I here for? What am I supposed to be doing? And he says, but I know what it's not. It's not being self-righteous. And I know this. It's also not thinking I got all the answers. It's not thinking that I'm the all-wise one, that I have it all figured out, that I've got it all nailed down, and folks just need to live life the way I live life, and if you've got a problem, I've got the answer to it. I've never been where you're at, by the way, and I know exactly what you should do. I mean, that's not the answer. That's not it. That's not it. In fact, every year, I start over in the Bible in the book of Genesis and start reading it. And at the end of the year, my goal is at the end of December 31st to have finished up the last book in the Bible. And then January 1st, start once again. First chapter of Genesis. And I've been doing this for years. And every single year, I find something that I know I've read before because I've been doing the same reading program for decades. I know I've read it before, but I can't remember it. It's like it's brand new. It's like lights go off. I've never seen that before. I never saw it like that before. Never realized it like that before. What I'm trying to say is this, is no matter how smart you think you are, there's still something to be learned. You don't have all the answers. Solomon is the wise man. He's saying, I'm scratching my head. I still don't have all the answers. I don't know what I'm here for. I've got questions. I just don't have all the answers. So learn how to say, I don't know, and God, please help me. Because you've got the answers I need. Something else he takes off the table. It's not self-indulgence. Because he says don't be over wicked. Sometimes that's a struggle. Maybe not for you. It's a struggle in my mind. I mean, because if those that are good sometimes suffer. If those that are doing bad seem to just be getting ahead. There's this temptation, throw caution to the wind, just be bad. I mean, just join them. And if that's what it takes to get ahead, then why not just do it that way? And it's a good thing to acknowledge. That Solomon seems to acknowledge it here, that we all have wickedness living inside of us. That there's all this temptation to just say, well, I'm just going to forget trying to be good anyway. I just satisfy my desires. I just live guided by the temptations that live inside of me. That's just what I'll do. Listen, it is a bad thing to abandon ourselves to wickedness, and the answers to the questions we're looking for, they will not be found there. So sometimes there's this temptation to say, I'm a sinner and I'm going to sin anyway. I'm going to try to do right, but I'm just going to fall. So why don't I just fall? Why don't I just try to give up being right? Solomon says, that's not the answer either. That's not it. It's not self-righteousness. It's not self-conceit or confidence. It's not self-indulgence. They're not there. Well, where is it then? Look at verse 18. It is good that thou shouldest take hold of this. Yea, also from this withdraw not thine hand. That's like putting bold, neon highlight, asterisks, exclamation points. Get your attention. This is good. Take hold of it. Don't withdraw your hand from it. What? For he that feareth God shall come forth of them all. You know where the answer to what am I here for? Is found in a relationship with God. Oh, he uses the term fear God. I wanted to distance myself from that. I don't like the term. And so I started perusing and toggling through other translations, trying to find someone else that used a term that I was more at ease with, something besides fear. I looked at 21 different translations of the Bible. Why 21? Because that's what I had access to, 21. I looked through 21 different translations of the Bible, and I found that 20 out of 21 used the word fear or some form of the word. I can't run from it. It's just what it is. I mean, I like it, but it's there. God wants to understand that this is it. This is. I fear God. I revere God. I fear God by submitting myself to God. I fear God when I worship God. It's fear God. It's saying, God, you're way up there and I'm way down here. God, you're in control and I'm out of control. God, you have the answers and all I've got is questions. It's just putting God in His right position and putting myself in my rightful position, by the way. And understand something. Fear can be a really good thing. It can be. I learned to fear electricity when I took one of my mama's bobby pins at about 4 years of age and stuck it into each prong into an electrical. I learned real quick, don't do that. I learned. I learned to fear the hot glow of a stove burner by being so mesmerized by it when my mom walked out of the kitchen, one of my earliest memories, and she said, now, Charles, don't touch the stove. And what did I do? I watched her walk around the corner, and as soon as she did, I just had to reach it. It was so pretty. It glowed so red. I learned to be afraid of that burner. I learned to be afraid of my dad when I brought home a dismal report card, and it was a good thing for me to learn to be afraid of him before he killed me. I learned to be afraid of fire when I accidentally set 50 acres on fire. Fear is not a bad thing. And since we're all going to stand before God one day, maybe it's a good thing to learn to fear Him. I don't mean in a cowering kind of sense, but a sense that says, God, I don't know what I'm here for. And one day, I'm going to stand before you and give answers for what I did while I was here. Lord, help me, because I need some help. I need questions answered. I need to know what life is about. Because it's got to be about more than just getting up and going to work Monday and ending the week on Friday and trying to shove something into 2 weeks a week, 2 days a weekend. It's got to be more than saving and planning and scrounging for that 2 weeks and coming back exhausted just to do it all, just to live in a day. It's got to be more. And it's just days flying by. And sometimes I think Dietrich Bonhoeffer was right when he suggested that one day we may discover, when we leave this world behind, and we enter eternity, that all this down here was just the prologue before the curtain went up and real life begins in eternity. Here's what I know. Every one of us has questions. And sometimes we feel like life is meaningless, like it's just flying by, and we don't know what it's about. It's just days. We move from one season to the next, and it feels like just days. Decades have passed, and it feels like just days. One chapter ended, another chapter opens, and it feels like, man, where did that go? And what am I here for? I don't have all the answers, but Solomon gives us this answer to start with. I am here to have a relationship with God. I'm here to fear Him, to know Him, to get to know Him, to have a relationship with Him. You may say, well, how do I have a relationship with God? What do you mean? Jesus explained it to a self-righteous religious man named Nicodemus one day. And he says, here's how it goes, Nicodemus. You must be born again. That's how the relationship starts. You believe in Jesus and become part of God's family. And then you can get to know God. The God who has a purpose for the days that we're spending on earth. The God who can give us a sense of fulfillment so when we stand up in the middle of the field and look to see where we're at, we feel like, I'm doing something that counts because life is flying by. But I'm headed to eternity to meet the eternal God that I'm living for in the here and now. I'm not wasting my life. Would you stand for a moment? Would you bow your head? Don't know where you're at spiritually. I don't know if you're on the inside the family of God looking out, or if you're on the outside the family of God looking in. I don't know. That's just between you and the Lord. But I know this. I know life is flying by. Man, it's getting faster. I know this. Sometimes every one of us want to say, Lord, what is it about? What am I here for? What am I really accomplishing? Sometimes we wonder, is there any value to living? So did Solomon. And he helped us answer the question. It's not in self-righteous trying to be better than others. It's not in thinking that you're smarter than the rest, and you've got all the answers. No, it's not there. It's certainly not an abandonment to wickedness and just doing whatever. No. It's in a relationship with God. And if you do not have a relationship with God, I want to invite you this morning, whether where you stand or whether you walk down this aisle, and I'll hold your hand and help you. Make a decision today to become part of God's family, to get to know this God that one day we're all going to stand before. Father God, we ask for you to help us. We have questions. Often we don't know the answers, but we know you do. We pray that you would guide our decisions that we'll make in this moment, and may the decisions that we make in these moments be decisions that we're content to live with for eternity. We ask it in Christ's name.